Welcome to your Canadiens Connection on Rocket Sports Radio. We are proud to be the trusted source for all things Habs for more than a decade. This is the Canadiens Connection Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Canadiens Connection Podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio, keeping you informed, engaged, and entertained. My name is Michael Spinella, and I'll be your host for the next hour. This is episode 284 of the Canadiens Connection Podcast, and I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio by my co-host, the editor of the Hockey News Montreal, the founder and the president of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevenson. How are you doing today, Rick?
Good day, sir. Doing well. We had a terrific pre-show meeting, and I'm feeling all warmed up already. We're talking about trade deadline scenarios for the Montreal Canadiens, and I'm ready to go. How about you?
Feeling pretty ready to go as well. Had a little energy boost. To be honest, I feel like at the beginning of this, I was going to say it's a chill vibe, but now I've got some energy in me and I'm ready to go.
Awesome.
So we'll make sure that we take everyone through this past week, everything that the Montreal Canadiens got up to, games, roster news, prospects, and just some news from around the NHL. And of course, in segment 2, it's trade deadline scenarios. We'll take a look at all the different scenarios for the Montreal Canadiens. And of course, segment 3 is a Have Your Say segment. We'll turn things over to our listeners. Our Canadiens Connection question of the week is, which Canadiens do you consider must trades ahead of the NHL Trade Deadline? And of course, we like to interact with everyone. Rick, what's the best way for all of our listeners to reach out to us?
Well, there's a few ways. If you have a little bit more to say, you can reach out to us via email. The email address is hello@rocketsportsmedia.com. But if it's easier, why don't you just text us? We've set up a Rocket Sports text line. It's easy to remember, 5853-ROCKET. That's 5853-ROCKET. Text us 24 hours a day.
And also make sure that you're following us on social media. It's at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And we also have a website, canadiensconnection.fm. Make sure that you check out all of our comprehensive pregame previews and postgame recaps for every Canadiens game at thn.com/Montreal. That's the Hockey News Montreal. And here's what's happened since we've been gone. Going back to February the 17th, the Washington Capitals come into Montreal, and they come away with a 4-3 victory. I actually thought that Jake Allen had a solid performance in this game. Both teams were pretty close, but by the end of the game, it was the Habs power play that let them down. And of course, the Washington Capitals come away with that 1-goal victory. The
Capitals were dangerous all game long. High danger scoring chances as calculated by Natural Stat Trick. 24-13, which is 24 is a pretty high number. If you follow that stat. So great game from Jake Allen. Unfortunate that they couldn't get the win. The other number that was being bandied about after this game was 102.2 miles an hour. That was a slap shot by Arbor Xhekaj with his goal. Xhekaj about 6.5 miles an hour less than one Shea Weber, but he can get there.
Arbor Xhekaj had another pretty good game a couple of days later on February the 21st as the Buffalo Sabres come to town, and Buffalo wins this one 3-2. The Habs actually outshot the Sabres by a pretty wide margin, but Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen looked pretty good in net for the Sabres. The Habs went 0-4 on the power play, only scored 2 goals, and both coming from the D-men. One, Jayden Struble, and the other, like we just said, Arbor Xhekaj. The Sabres had a very dominant second period, scoring all 3 other goals there to take the win.
Jayden Struble loves to score against the Sabres, apparently. He has 3 goals this season, 2 of those against the Sabres. His good friend Devin Levi plays for the Sabres. I think this was the best game of the season for Arbor Xhekaj. He was very physical. He was looking confident. He was being Arbor Xhekaj in this game, and it was good to see him back.
And that was the first of a back-to-back. The second half was the very next day on February the 22nd as Montreal visited the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they lose 4-1. They actually had a pretty good start to this one. An interception by Mike Matheson and a point shot led to a 1-0 lead for the Montreal Canadiens. but they fizzled immediately after that as goaltender Tristan Jarry looked like the king in between the pipes for the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Habs once again led in the shot department, but failed to capitalize on a lot of their chances. The Pens scored 2 in the second and add an empty netter to take the victory.
Canadians were 0 for 3 on the power play. The power play is struggling right now. Canadians have lost 4 straight games, and you mentioned it was a back-to-back. The Canadians are now 1-10 on the second game of the back-to-back. That is worse in the National Hockey League. They have 1 win on a back-to-back, and that was against Chicago in just before Christmas. Interestingly enough, the Canadians have played 57 games. They have 52 points and are ranked 26th in the National Hockey League. Look back last year. After 57 games, what did it look like? 52 points, 26th in the National Hockey League. Exactly the same. Where's the progress, Mr. Kent Hughes? Where's the progress?
So right now the Habs are sitting at a 0.1% chance of making the playoffs, so that goes down a little bit again from last week, on pace for 76 points. And don't look now, but there's a team in the Atlantic Division right behind them, behind by 1 point, and have 3 games at hand. So it's possible by this time next week that the Canadians are the absolute bottom of the Atlantic Division. So make sure that you check out Habs Notepad. Habs headlines, feature articles, and game day posts appearing regularly at thn.com/Montreal. Taking a look at our roster news, Jordan Harris returned to the lineup against the Buffalo Sabres. Harris took a hit to the head last week against the St. Louis Blues. Nice to see him back, and to be honest, I thought he put together a couple of good games.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah, missed a couple of games, and with that hit, concussion symptoms, but he played really well once he got back into the lineup, replacing Jonathan Kovacevic.
So breaking news, the Montreal Canadiens have a brand new player this week as they claimed forward Colin White off of waivers from the Pittsburgh Penguins. And Colin White did not have to travel far. He just had to go to the visiting dressing room as he would play against the Pittsburgh Penguins on the very same day that he was claimed by the Montreal Canadiens. So far in the NHL this season, Colin White is yet to register his first point. So kind of disappointing for him. I think he's been more of an AHL player for the Penguins. And man, his career trajectory just did not pan out. This was a former first-round pick by the Ottawa Senators, also a former Kent Hughes client, and he'll likely be the fourth liner for the remainder of the season on Montreal. And it's just been the curious case of Colin White. I've not been able to stop thinking about all the potential that he once had, and the fact that I wouldn't have believed you if you told me that in 2024 he'd be put on waivers. And
playing about a dozen games for the Penguins. He'll play more than that for the Montreal Canadiens. As you said, Montreal looking for a center. Colin White fits the bill. And someone that Kent Hughes is very, very familiar with, as you said, former client.
Absolutely. So with that transaction, the Montreal Canadiens placed forward Brendan Gignac on waivers. He did clear on Friday, and he was reassigned to Laval. He's been putting up some decent numbers in Laval. I think that's more where he fits in. In the NHL, he just looked out of place, to be completely honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Marty St. Louis said that Brandon Gignac has NHL level compete, and he stopped there. Because I don't think there are many other. He has decent speed, but there's not many other parts of his game that are NHL caliber. He split his season between the AHL and the ECHL. So best that he be returned to Laval, cleared waivers, back to Laval, and he'll help them in their playoff push. I'll still ask the question, why in the world did the Canadiens demote Mitchell Stevens? He was fine on the fourth line. He was playing well. He fit in. There was no reason to send him to Laval and for Gignac to come up.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Bad news coming out of Thursday night's game against the Pittsburgh Penguins as Jayden Struble left that game with an injury. I'm hoping that he's okay, but because he before that was looking like a very good defenseman and was a very bright spot on this Montreal Canadiens team.
It was ugly. He crawled essentially to the bench and then was taken to the dressing room, not putting any weight whatsoever on his leg. And it was one of those situations where the player, Jayden Struble, it was just a dump in. There was no contact, and then you saw him pull up. So that has many speculating that it could be an Achilles injury or something relatively serious. We don't know. As we're recording, the Canadiens have not announced any medical update. Let's hope that there's only good news for Jayden Struble.
And some more fun news. The Canadiens skills competition will take place at Bell Center on Sunday. This is always a fun thing to watch, looking out for who might be the hardest shot and the fastest skater.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's the kind of situation where they take the glass down, not on the ends, of course, but on the side, so that fans get a up-close look at their heroes, opportunity to get autographs, that sort of thing. So it'll be lots of fun.
And with that, I think it's a good time to get to our Habs prospect report.
It's time for the Rocket Report. The Rocket Sports Media Team is your premier source for information about the Laval Rocket, the AHL affiliate of the Montreal Canadiens, as well as Habs prospects playing in the CHL, NCAA, and leagues around the world. Bookmark thn.com/Montreal to follow our comprehensive coverage of Canadiens prospects.
Each week, we like to highlight a Montreal Canadiens prospect, and this week we're going to shine the spotlight on the Kitchener Rangers forward, Filip Mesar, the former first-round pick, the same year as Juraj Slafkovsky, and from the exact same country in Slovakia as Slafkovsky is. And this season in the OHL with the Rangers, he's actually had a bit of an improvement. Looking at his 2022-23 numbers, in 52 games, he registered 51 points. So far in 33 games, he's registered 42 points this season. So absolutely a player that I'm keeping my eyes on. And it's nice to see that he's taken a nice step forward.
For sure. The Kitchener Rangers are one of those teams in the QMJHL site, the Hockey News QMJHL site. They are one of the kind of honorable mentions when you're talking about Memorial Cup contenders. They went out and at the deadline made some additions, reinforced their team. So maybe Filip Mesar is not feeling that he has to be the guy this year. With a nice supporting cast, he's had an excellent season. And I think he's just, maybe last season he was not wanting to be there. He had said that, I played against men, I don't need to be playing against boys. And I think this season he's happy to be there. He understands a little bit better the whole development progression, and he's excelling and could have an opportunity. At least he'll have an opportunity for the OHL playoffs.
Absolutely. So we'll keep an eye on him, and looking forward to when he eventually joins this Montreal Canadiens team. If we want to do a very early preview of next preseason, I think that he's going to be my player to watch at least.
That's a good pick.
The Montreal Canadiens prospect pool rankings came out through The Athletic, and Scott Wheeler is the one responsible of that. He ranks them as number 10 in the NHL. He notes that they have a lot more quantity than other teams do, but they also have some quality specifically on defense. Ranking 1 through 5 here, you have Hudson, Reinbacher, Fowler, Waugh, and Mailloux. I think the reasonable list. I'm surprised to see how high Fowler and Waugh are on this list, but I do find it interesting to see Lane Hudson ahead of David Reinbacher.
Yeah, I agree. That's I'm glad that he's recognized that Lane Hudson is a pretty special player. Not that Reinbacher isn't, but I think the jury's still out. We don't know what kind of player Reinbacher is going to be. Projected to be a number one type defenseman, but has had a tough season on a bad team this year, and it's I think we'll be able to see once he comes over. Joshua Waugh, is he a bit high on the list? Owen Beck, is he a bit low? Justin Barron, a bit low. Logan Mailloux, low. Jayden Struble, maybe a bit low on this list. Why in the world is Xavier Simoneau on this list at all? I mean, we can quibble with all of these individual rankings, but I think that it's clear. A lot of Canadiens fans kind of overvalue the prospects. The Canadiens having number 10, and this is up one from last year in Scott's ranking, seems about right. Is the rebuild over? No, the Canadiens still need elite talent, whether that's drafted elite talent or bringing in young players like a Kirby Dach to add to the young core. So always fun to see these ratings for the prospects to get recognition. And maybe there's some that are missing on this list. What about a Florian Jacki? Maybe he should be on this list given the season that he's having this year. But we'll keep tabs on it. And Scott Wheeler isn't the only one we'll look out for. I think Corey Pronman's rankings will be out next, and I think we have a little bit more trust in Pronman's ratings. His longevity over the years, he seems to get a little bit closer to the mark.
Yeah, I think you got that right. And with that, let's take a look at the Laval Rocket, Montreal's AHL affiliate, and what they've been up to this past week. Going back to February the 17th, Laval takes a visit to Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and they lose 6-3. The only thing I really have to say about Laval in this game is Jan Mysak scored a pair of goals, so very good for him. They were outshot, and honestly, they took too many penalties, so that's what led to that loss. On the 18th, Laval went and visited Bridgeport, and they lost in overtime 2-1. Heineman scored the lone Laval goal as Matt Maggio scored twice for Bridgeport. And a couple days later, on February the 21st, Laval back at home take on Hershey, and they win 3-2 in the shootout. It was Logan Mailloux that snapped that losing streak with his shootout winner.
Laval's such an odd team to watch. Bridgeport, one of the worst teams in the league, and they can't generate much against Bridgeport. Hershey is on a historic run, one of the best teams ever in the American Hockey League, and I'm not exaggerating. And Laval plays extremely well against them, and Mailloux with that shootout winner. So they can be both a fun team to watch and a frustrating team to watch. And it's going to be interesting to see as they make a push for the playoffs.
Laval's record currently 22-25-2, 51 points, and 22nd in the AHL. Coming up next week, they do have 3 games that we'll keep our eyes on. On the 24th of February, Laval takes on Toronto at home. On the 28th, they go to visit Bridgeport. And on the 1st of March, they go out to visit Hartford. So hitting the road this next week after 1 game at home. Big news from Laval Rocket. They have signed goaltender Casimir Kaskisuo to a 1-year, one-way AHL contract. I think he's earned it since coming in. He's really solidified that net in Laval, and you can see the difference in their play. I think that you can almost, if you were to look at all their previous games, you could almost see where Strauss-Mann stopped playing and where Casimir Kaskisuo started to play.
And it's not only due to Kaskisuo's play. Dobish has looked much better. In fact, Dobish is getting the majority of the starts. But having Kaskisuo there, as Patrick Williams explained last week in Canadiens Connection episode 283, in fact, it's a worthwhile segment. You should go listen to it. But explain just how the addition of a Kaskisuo can add confidence to the entire team. And really, I wonder why Laval waited so long. Kaskisuo was on a 25-game PTO. But you saw instantly the difference he made. And listen, when you're on a PTO, you're free to sign with anybody, any suitor that comes. I kept wondering, Laval, come on, sign this guy. There's a chance you could lose him. But fortunately, he signed that contract that will see him stay with the club for the rest of the season.
Moving down one league to the ECHL, let's take a look at the Trois-Rivières Lions. And this past week, not so good. On the 17th of February, they got shut out by Adirondack 3-0. So right now their record is 19-24, 3-2, 12th place in the Eastern Conference. So their struggles all around just seem to be continuing. They can't score. Goaltenders have been quite shaky. This past week, Strauss-Mann was reassigned to Trois-Rivières. He's yet to suit up, but I'd be curious to see if he makes any kind of a difference.
And they need to score. As you said, they're really having trouble scoring. Goaltending is one thing, and maybe Strauss-Mann can help, but they need to score some goals.
Absolutely. Did you know that we cover the QMJHL for the Hockey News? And we've been doing some nice articles over the past few weeks. Written by Mike Raschel, we've been doing the Memorial Cup Contender Series, and there's been a lot of good content that you might want to look out for there.
And the article started with a focus on the OHL. Why would our site, which focuses on the QMJHL and the Q fans, write articles about the OHL? Well, in the Memorial Cup, the representative from the Q will be facing these other teams. So we're doing a Memorial Cup Contenders series, starting with the Q and who's the Q going to face? Are they going to face the Saginaw? Well, they're going to face the Saginaw Spirit. They're the hosts. Are they going to face the London Knights, the Kitchener Rangers, Sioux Greyhounds, Sudbury Wolves? If you want a little bit of background about the better teams, the contenders coming out of the O, you'll want to read those articles. And coming up soon, we'll have similar review of the contenders in the WHL.
So if you want to find all the content about Canadiens prospects, you can head over to thn.com/Montreal. And if you're looking for the best English language coverage of the Quebec Maritimes Junior Hockey League, head over to thn.com/QMJHL. And now it's a good time to get to our quotes of the week. And this week it's all about Kirby Dach. It's been a difficult season for Kirby Dach. He had a season-ending injury pretty early on in the second game of the season. And the first audio clip that we have from him, he's talking about his rehabilitation process.
Anytime you're hurt, you want to kind of come back and, as a player, push your timelines a little bit and be ready to go as soon as you can. So for me, I just kind of take it day by day, step by step. There's good days and there's bad days with it, but so far it's been really good, and the training staff's been great, and support staff and the trainers in the gym and stuff. So I feel good. It's nice to be able to skate and get on the ice a little bit, but still a little bit of a road ahead of me.
So he's quiet, but it's nice to hear from him. He obviously is disappointed the way this season panned out. Wasn't expecting to miss almost the entire season, but it was good to see him back. First in tracksuit, then in full equipment on the ice. He gives credit to the medical staff. Remember, the medical and training staff are relatively new, and from Alex Newhook or from Kirby Dach, you've heard nothing but praise for the medical staff and the way they've dealt with injuries and rehab. And he says, he has good days, he has bad days, but he's liking the way his rehab is going. And I think that there was far too many questions. Let me scold fellow media people asking him whether he's coming back at the end of the season. Well, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. The focus is making sure that his rehab goes and that he's 100% to start the season next season. It doesn't matter if he comes back for a couple of games, possible, but it doesn't really matter if he comes back. And there was even a question about whether he would participate in the World Championships, and he correctly said, why? What's the point? I'm going to, finish the rehab here, work hard over the summer, and be ready for the fall. And I think he has a good attitude, and I should say that the Canadiens have done a good job keeping him engaged. We've seen him in the press box at every game. And he's there on game days. He's there early, and has been invited to sit in with the coaches when the coaches have their meetings and do their pre-scout. When they meet the next day after a game and break down the game, Kirby Dach is in that room. Kirby Dach is helping to contribute and tell the coaching staff what he saw from up in the press box. And sure, he's learning the game, but in a different way, seeing the game from a different way, but also understanding those coaching perspectives. And I think all of that just helps keep him engaged this season.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And we have one other clip coming from Kirby Dach, and this time he's talking about working with Juraj Slafkovsky.
To be honest, I saw myself a lot in Slav. Big kid, come in, maybe he was ready or maybe he wasn't. You don't really know, but I felt like I was kind of in the same situation where you come in, you have a lot of expectations on you, but the most expectations come from within yourself, and you want to do good and prove or be right that you deserve to be in that spot. And so when you see a young guy struggling, you kind of step in and try and help him as much as you can. I mean, I had a lot of older guys help me out in Chicago along the way, and definitely wouldn't be where I am today without them. So any little advice I could talk to Slav about, Cools, Arbor, JB, anybody that kind of has their first couple of years here, definitely going to be able to talk to them and try and help them out.
There's a lot there. There's a lot there. First, there's not much difference in age, particularly, between Dach and Aguli. But he talks about stepping in and talking to Aguli and Xhekaj and Barron and Juraj Slafkovsky, and says that I see a lot of myself in him, a big guy and coming into the league. And how honest was that when he said whether he was ready or he wasn't ready? Well, we said that he wasn't ready, and maybe he needed some time in Laval, and not maybe, he did need some time in Laval. And Kirby said, maybe not, but it was good for me to sit down with him and talk through things with him and help him get through the difficult times, especially early in the season. And he went on to say, maybe we'll have a chance to play next year, and developing a bit of a connection with him. So when Canadiens fans have Slafkovsky, penciled or written in ink that he's going to be permanently with Suzuki and Caulfield, don't be surprised if there's some auditions with Kirby Dach next season, which would be really effective for the Canadiens, giving them two strong lines rather than just the one that they have this season. But fascinating quote from Kirby Dach.
Yeah, I absolutely love his insights, and I like that he makes it kind of personal too in saying that he sees himself in Juraj Slafkovsky. And he said this, like you said, I think the start of the quote, I absolutely agree with all of that. I think that his honesty and everything he said there was truly amazing coming from such a young player.
For sure.
And now let's take a look at some hockey news and notes. First and foremost, Gary Bettman has upheld the 5-game suspension to Toronto Maple Leafs forward Morgan Riley. This was a suspension given to him for cross-checking Ridley Gregg to the head. And I think this is one of the rare times where Bettman and I have seen eye to eye on a situation. I think this is the right move.
Well, you know what? Gary got it wrong.
Oh, did he?
Because the commissioner, when you appeal to the commissioner, you also... you can reduce the suspension, but you can also increase the suspension, and he should have increased it to 6 games. So there, we can disagree with Gary. How about that?
Yeah, fair enough. I like it better your way. Coming out from The Athletic, they rated the best and the worst top pairing defensemen in the NHL. And where did the Canadiens defensemen appear? Well, spoiler alert. Right near the bottom, 5th worst pairing in the league, according to The Athletic. They talked about Mike Matheson, who's taken on a lot of minutes, averaging a whopping 25.24 minutes per game. They say that that's a big responsibility for someone who's very talented, but not a bona fide number 1 defenseman. What do you think about that?
Yeah, they're absolutely right. There's Canadiens fans love their players. They overvalue their players. Is Mike Matheson a number one defenseman on a contending team, on a playoff-bound team anywhere else? No, of course not. He makes far too many mistakes, and the offense that he does provide is I think it's overblown. And you see in the analytics that they provide, the contribution overall, what he gives up and what the Canadiens get back when he's on the ice is pretty minimal. They say he's a beautiful skater. He eats up a lot of minutes. I guess the only value in him eating a lot of minutes is lessening the exposure on the younger defensemen. But he's not contributing as positively as Canadiens fans think he is. And listen, when the Canadiens are a contender, Mike Matheson is not going to be on your top pairing. He's not going to be on your second pairing, and he may not be in the lineup at all.
And I think we saw all of that against the Pittsburgh Penguins the other night, scoring the first goal off of a great play, and then not too long later, the Pittsburgh Penguins scoring a goal off of a Mike Matheson bad giveaway. So there you go. He giveth and he taketh away.
Exactly.
Ending the segment on a bit of a sadder note, former Canadiens defenseman Jean-Guy Talbot passed away at the age of 91. So this defenseman played over 1,000 games in the NHL. He also took over 1,000 penalty minutes. So great career and an absolute legend.
7 Stanley Cups. He was on the dynasty team that won 5 Stanley Cups between 1956 and 1960. He also won a cup in 65 and 66. Went on to play for other teams, but always be thought of as a Montreal Canadian. And we send our deep felt condolences to his family.
Definitely. And coming up, we'll hear a message from our sponsors, DraftKings, and then we'll get to our big topic segment. We'll talk about the trade deadline. This is the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
We know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Maybe you want to make a bet on 5 different players who are going to score a goal tonight. The opportunities are endless on DraftKings Sportsbook. There are so many different combinations, opportunities, specials, parlays, straight up money line bets, you name it. There's so many ways to play on DraftKings Sportsbook. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with the code THPN. New customers bet just $5 on the NHL and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2024. All rights reserved.
Welcome back to episode 284 of the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. My name is Michael Spinella. You can find me on Twitter at the Spinella, and with me in the studio is our president and founder of Rocket Sports, Rick Stevens. Make sure to give him a follow on Twitter at Rocket Sports, and you can also follow at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Plus, we have a website, CanadiensConnection.fm. And just a reminder here to make sure that you are subscribed to the Canadiens Connection podcast in the player or on your favorite podcasting app. That way, you never miss a single episode. And Rick, we're just a few weeks out from the NHL Trade Deadline.
That's right.
Ken Hughes did make his first big move a couple of weeks back, trading Sean Monahan to the Winnipeg Jets for a first-round pick. And in my opinion, arguably the most important move leading up to that trade deadline. So it's nice that that's out of the way. But how are we? About 2 weeks away. How's this going to play out for the Montreal Canadiens? We're going to take a deep dive and look at this from a couple different aspects.
Yeah, I think there are multiple aspects to look at this from. And yes, Ken Hughes was successful in dealing with the Winnipeg Jets. Getting a first-round pick, that was the goal, getting a first-round pick with respect to Sean Monahan. But there's still other opportunity. There are teams out there who are headed for the playoffs. And the Canadiens have the kind of players that just might fit on one of their rosters. So let's see if we can sort this all out.
Yeah, I would hope that they have a couple more trades in mind. Looking at some trade boards across the TSN and the Athletic, I see Jake Allen on both of those lists. On TSN, he's number 12. The Athletic, not so high on him at 21. And the only other player I see on either list is one Tanner Pearson, appearing at number 41 on TSN's list. So I find that a little bit alarming that there aren't more Montreal Canadiens players being shopped around and high up on these trade boards.
Yeah, at least according to TSN and Sportsnet and Athletic and Daily Faceoff. And it seems that Calgary is going to determine how a lot of these transactions go. That, until Noah Hannafin is traded, will there be any other defenseman traded? He'll kind of set that domino in motion. And with respect to goaltenders, maybe it's Jacob Markstrom that gets that ball in motion as well. So Calgary, get busy so that Ken Hughes can clean up with the teams that are still left hanging after those major players are traded.
Absolutely. And interesting thing that we both noticed is there appear to be a lot of former Montreal Canadiens on the trade block. We see Joel Edmondson is being shopped around by the Washington Capitals. There's potential of Brett Kulak being traded by the Edmonton Oilers. And of course, I think this one makes sense on the San Jose Sharks. Mike Hoffman being shopped around as well. I think that this kind of shows that a lot of these players were kind of moved out at the right time, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Max Pacioretty's there, Thomas Tatar, that Canadiens great John Merrill is also on the trade bait board, and I think that that does justify the decision that the Canadiens trade them when they need to, and then they've served their value for the current team and are back on the list again. And I think we should keep that in mind when we think of players like David Savard, who some are saying wait until next season before you make him available.
And oddly enough, there are a lot of young talents that are appearing to be made available by other teams. We know that Kent Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens are kind of looking out for these types of trades where they can acquire a younger prospect or a younger player further along and add them to their current group. Some of these players include Trevor Zegras, Capo Caco, and Arthur Kaliev. LeBrun actually reporting that the Habs have expressed interest in Trevor Zegras. Capo Caco, 49th on the trade board, whereas Arthur Kaliev comes in at 29th.
I like Kaliev. I liked when he was with the Bulldogs, with the Kings now, and things just haven't worked out. Just a very offensive player, got a terrific shot. Work ethic might be an issue, and we'll see. Maybe that's the kind of player he is, or maybe just a new situation would be helpful for him. Capo Caco, brought in, I think, by Nick Bobrov, and Trevor Zegras. There's the built-in connection with Cole Caulfield. We saw them last year, Formula One. They were joined at the hip in Montreal. Trevor Zegras, I'll just say that he would require a pretty significant package going back. And my guess is Montreal Canadiens fans would not be happy with what you have to give up to get a Trevor Zegras. You'd have to give up a Gooley. You'd have to give up a Reinbacher. You'd have to give up something big to get back a Zegras. And I don't know that Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon are interested in doing that. This is fascinating, and we know that Kent Hughes is looking for a young player who can match the ages of the young talent that he has. I just don't see him bringing a player like this in at this time of year. But we don't have that many trade deadlines of history with Kent Hughes to really understand him fully.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if they were to want to make a move like this, it's probably better at the offseason or in and around the draft, like we've seen Kent Hughes do a couple of years in a row now.
Yes.
Trevor Zegras, in my opinion, if he were to come to Montreal, yes, it would take a pretty hefty trade. You'd probably lose something you don't want to. But also, on the other side, he probably would come in and be one of the most talented players that this team has had in a lot of years, maybe even a couple decades. Capo Caco, I don't have a ton of interest in this player. He was a former second overall pick. Maybe there's some familiarity with Bobrov there. But again, I've not followed his career to know what's really been the situation with him. And Arthur Kaliev, I liked him a lot in junior. Actually, I was hoping that he'd be drafted by one of the teams that I follow. I remember his draft day, actually. He was first round potential, but he didn't look too happy when he slid all the way to the second round there. Yeah. But still, I think that this is a player that could come in and add a lot of much needed offense. He'd certainly have the opportunity to. Yeah,
he's said that he's had a tough start in Los Angeles, but 14, 13 goals and he's only 22 years old. In a very interesting reclamation project, I guess you'd call it. But again, as we both said, probably not the kind of player that's added at this time of the season.
So let's now take a look and see what the Montreal Canadiens have to offer up to other teams that are looking to make a splash at the trade deadline. And I think let's start with one Yoel Armia. This is a player that I wouldn't be surprised if he was on the trade block. I think he might actually be. And I think a lot of playoff teams could actually use a player like this with his size and his potential contributions through the playoffs. We saw that during the Habs playoff run. He's certainly he's a warrior out there. He can fill that role. I wonder if the Habs maybe took down his trade value quite a bit by sending him down to the AHL at a couple points this season. Since then, I think he's been all right, but this is a player that he can be a little bit up and down and a little bit inconsistent. So what are your thoughts on the potential of moving out one Yoel Armia?
I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't think it's going to happen, and it's unfortunate. He has one more year after this year, $3.4 million. There is maybe some potential for a team to be interested, but and listen, for Yoel Armia, he's played pretty decently at times this season, but just not enough to make up for that fact that he was dispatched to Laval, available on waivers, and was passed over by all the teams in the league.
For sure. Taking a look at the other JA initial on the team, Josh Anderson. I've said this on the podcast many times, but according to Kent Hughes last season, the phone was ringing off the hook for this player, and he didn't want to trade him. And, this season, it's not been very good for Josh Anderson. I would be very surprised if there was a team out there calling for Josh Anderson, if I'm being honest. 7 goals, 15 points. It took him 2 months to get his first goal of the season. In my opinion, I think teams are smarter to go after other players, but you never know. Do you think that there's a potential of the Montreal Canadiens moving Josh Anderson this season?
The same percentage as their chance of making the playoffs, I think. About
0.01.
Yeah, something like that. No, Josh Anderson is not going to be traded. $5.5 million, and he's really only been visible in a handful of games this season. My goodness, that's really looking like a mistake by Kent Hughes. 3 more seasons at 5.5 after this season.
Yeah, unfortunately, the other night I did nickname him the Ghost, because sometimes I don't even know that he's playing, and all of a sudden he's there, not doing something very good most of the time.
And listen, lots of people say that Marty St. Louis is got some sort of magic wand, and he's waved it over Cole Caulfield and waved it over Juraj Slafkovsky. Why doesn't he wave it in the direction of Josh Anderson? The truth is, Marty's had his failures too, and it should have been easy to get him to motivate Josh Anderson and have Josh Anderson playing at his potential. Marty hasn't been able to do it with Josh Anderson, didn't do it with Jonathan Drouin. There's others. We talk about the hits a lot of the time. There have been a few misses as well.
The next guy on our list is Mike Matheson. I think pretty polarizing between the fans, what their feelings are on Mike Matheson. And I might take this opportunity to actually point at an article that we have on thn.com/Montreal, written by our own Amy Johnson, talking about why the Habs should move on from Mike Matheson before the trade deadline. And to be completely honest, I think if there's an offer out there, whether it's before the trade deadline or in the offseason, I think that this is a move that you probably should make. I know Mike Matheson is wearing the A night in, night out. I know sometimes his offensive contributions look pretty good. You can see the talent, great skater, but I think this is a player that if there's an offer, I would like to see the Montreal Canadiens move on from him.
On pace for a 60-point season, which is nothing to sneeze at all. That's terrific, but it's what he gives up on the other end. Mike Matheson's a terrific skater, beautiful to watch. He can endure lots of minutes. He speaks the right language, but those aren't reasons that he'll be in the top pairing come time where the Canadiens are a contender. But just to say, as far as being traded, it's not going to happen now. If it happens at all, this would be an off-season trade. Mike Matheson's not being traded before the trade deadline.
For sure, and to add to that as well, he's been quarterbacking that first power play unit, and that power play has not looked good for a couple of seasons now. He's been given plenty of opportunity. We've talked about his offensive contributions and the fact that he's not been a great power play quarterback. I think that's a bit of a knock against him, unfortunately.
That's a great point.
Now, Jake Allen, we've talked about how he's on those trade boards. In my opinion, most likely the next to go, just because he's on those trade boards, and I think that this is a must, but I don't know if this is going to happen anymore based off of some of the comments coming from Kent Hughes. And to be honest, I might even consider this trade deadline a failure for the Montreal Canadiens if they do not move one of their 3 goaltenders out.
So now the goalposts are moved. We talked about it last week, that 3-goaltender situation is untenable if it still continues next season. So we know that one of the goaltenders, likely Jake Allen, will be traded sometime between now and September. I think it's leaning towards a summer trade and for that 3-goalie situation to be resolved. Unless Colorado, we know, is looking for a solid backup insurance. But Colorado usually doesn't make deals right until the end of the trade deadline. So I don't know that anything is going to happen there with Jake Allen, right up to the last minute or more likely in the summer.
Yeah, of course, Jacob Markstrom, like we said, is on those trade bait boards. And I think if you're looking at a goaltender, I think you'd prefer Jacob Markstrom, if we're being honest. On top of that, I might go as far to say that the Montreal Canadiens shot themselves in the foot with how they've dealt with Jake Allen this season. I think that he's been a goaltender that they've put out for the more difficult starts compared to both Caden Primo and Sam Montembeault. And on top of that, when he's on the ice playing, he doesn't get a ton of support. His team never seems to play well in front of him, and that they leave him hung out to dry, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's right. Goal support has been almost non-existent for Jake Allen. For Jake Allen himself, a goaltender who over the years got into a rhythm of playing, even as a backup, playing every so often. Now in the 3-goalie tandem, he's playing, very occasionally, and even at that, his numbers are still pretty comparable to Sam Montembeault, but you'd never know that by listening to the media. The media are constantly trashing him, and the fans following along, and it just isn't pretty for Jake Allen. And I know that the scouts don't hear all that sort of thing, but still, with the fan bases the way they are, for a fan base to go out for Colorado to go and try to rev up their fan base by bringing in a Jake Allen, when all this negative energy is out there, unfairly so. It makes it reminded me of Mark Bergevin actually went and would trash his players in public and then try to trade them, but this is the media doing it, and it's unfortunate because Jake Allen is a good guy, a good backup goaltender, and doesn't deserve the negativity that he's been getting.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I think just one last thing I'll say is I do feel bad for Jake Allen. If you go back to the golf tournament that happened back in September, he did say that he was looking to get some more starts, and it was just never in the cards for that to happen this season because of that 3-goalie tandem, and it's just been super awkward. I don't like how he's been made into some sort of a villain. I don't think that he's necessarily played bad. I think he's been the goalie who he is. At the beginning of the year, I think people forget that he stole a few games for the Montreal Canadiens. He stole some points for them, and it's just been unfortunate that since then and coming into 2024, you wouldn't know that he was a good goaltender if you hadn't been watching those games.
For sure.
And next on our list here is one David Savard. David Savard pulled an interesting magic trick where I think I saw him on all the trade boards back in January, and now he's gone missing. In my opinion, this would be another must, but unfortunately, I don't know if that will be happening anymore. I think the last couple months he's actually played reasonably well. He's been blocking shots. He's been a leader. I think that he could be of value to a team looking to make a run in the playoffs. But unfortunately, the last little while I've been noticing a lot of articles out there defending why the Montreal Canadiens should hang on to him and what a great leader he is for the younger players. So what are your thoughts on the potential of David Savard moving?
Well, David Savard must move. He must move at some point, and so why not sooner than later? I think, Kent Hughes' comments apply. We want to turn over the team. We want to put it in the hands of our young players. We want to give the leadership to our young players. Now, when Sean Monahan moved, the leadership, the young leaders had to step up. And the same would apply with, a David Savard trade. Then it's a goalie who has been a leader, who has been a captain, and say a Matheson or some of the other defensemen. I mean, a Kovacevic. Those players have to step up. I know there's a certain sentimentality around David Savard, but again, he's not going to be around when the Canadiens are contending. So yes, he's been playing reasonably well. He's been playing the kind of hockey that, not contributing the offense, but the kind of hockey you need in the playoffs, blocking shots, leaning on people, clearing the front of the net. And that's a team who's headed to the playoffs can use, a player like that. And they have been calling. And what Elliot Friedman said this week is, in his 32 Thoughts, interested parties do not believe David Savard wishes to leave Montreal. Well, if that was the criteria, Jake Allen has said that he doesn't want to leave Montreal. He wants to stay here. Jake Allen has family close by in New Brunswick. I know that David Savard has mentioned, he has his family here. He doesn't want to move. But they don't get to make those decisions. And funny enough, Jake Allen has more control because he has a modified no trade. David Savard doesn't have any kind of no trade. But maybe this is all just, as we said, Kent Hughes likes to leverage the media. And maybe this is all just saying that David Savard isn't being shopped, maybe is just a ploy to get more offers. Because if you look back to last season, the kinds of things that Kent Hughes was saying about Joel Edmondson are exactly the same thing that he said to David Savard. And David Savard said that Kent Hughes brought him up and talked to him and said, we've had conversations and Kent has talked to my agents. I told him that I'm happy here. And so hopefully it stays that way. Joel Edmondson, last season, Kent Hughes brought me up to his office a couple of times and said, you probably see what's you're seeing online. Edmondson said, I'd like staying here, but do what you have to do kind of thing. And Kent Hughes said, listen, we're not looking to move you, but we're listening. And maybe you'll get to be on a contender. I expect he gave exactly the same speech to David Savard. So Joel Edmondson was eventually moved in the summer, and at some point, I think David Savard's going to be moved. And listen, that's going to help because it's going to open up a spot for the young defensemen, give them more responsibility, and I think they're ready for it. The other thing is that we remember that David Savard has been injured. He's had injuries he had a fractured hand this year. He's healthy now leading up to the trade deadline. He may not be healthy leading up to the next trade deadline. So why not take advantage of it? Kent Hughes' job is to bring in assets for aging players and players who are not going to be here. I think it's time to trade David Savard.
Assets for aging players, you say? Interesting. How about one Tanner Pearson, the only other Montreal Canadien that I've seen on any of the trade boards? I think he's a decent depth piece. He was part of some good teams in Los Angeles. He's a good leader. He seems well-liked. If the Montreal Canadiens are willing to retain on one Tanner Pearson, I feel like this is a pretty good move. This would be the right time to move him out because he's also on an expiring contract, right?
That's right. Of the players that we've talked about, Tanner Pearson's the only one on an expiring contract. And if you've been listening to us for weeks, I've been saying Tanner Pearson needs to be on that list. Tanner Pearson is ideal. Now listen, he hasn't had a great season. He's had some injuries, but you play up the fact that he's got considerable playoff experience. He's won a cup. So he could be a help for a team. Now he's at probably more than you want to pay for a player of his skill at $3.25 million. But again, as we talked about last week, these players, there's going to be salary retention. There's going to be salary retention if a Pearson gets traded. There's going to be salary retention if David Savard or Jake Allen are traded. So that gets back to, and we keep reminding you, but we'll say it one more time, the Canadiens, Kent Hughes has used 2 of 3 retention slots. So there aren't going to be multiple trades here. It's unlikely because, like I say, for teams to be interested, the Canadiens are going to have to withhold salary, and they can only do that one more time this season.
Salary retention, man, you're making these transitions too easy for me.
You're welcome.
The third-party broker, that's something that we've seen the Montreal Canadiens do before. We saw that last season, like you said, with Nick Bonino. And to me, this I feel like this is unlikely because they only have that one salary retention spot left. So I don't think that they could help out another team by retaining salary and trading that player away. What do you think about this?
Well, did you remember the big haul that they got being involved in that three-way trade at the last trade deadline?
How big a haul was this?
The Canadiens were brokers, salary cap brokers in that three-way trade involved with Pittsburgh and San Jose. And the Penguins got Nick Bonino, the only notable person in the trade. Sharks got Arvid Hendrickson, former Canadiens prospect. The Montreal Canadiens received 27-year-old defenseman Tony Sund. Do you remember that?
I can honestly say I don't remember that name.
Exactly. He's now 28 and playing in Finland in Liga for HIFK. And they received a fifth-round pick in the upcoming 2024 draft. And for that, the Canadiens took on 50% of Bonino's salary. So I guess the question is, the Canadiens are going to be involved once here. Are they going to get more for a Jake Allen? Are they going to get more for a Tanner Pearson? Or are they going to get more being involved as a third-party broker in retaining salary? And remember, essentially all they got was a fifth-round pick. So are they going to get more than a fifth-round pick for Tanner Pearson? That's maybe not. But that's, I think, how the decision is going to be made, whether they use the cap availability, whether they use that one remaining retention slot to be that broker or to actually be involved in a trade. Obviously, the other benefit you get from moving a player is that spot, that valuable spot in the lineup that you can give to a young player for the rest of the season that they can develop. And if it's the case of Jake Allen, you get rid of the three-headed monster.
Yeah, I think those are all good points there too. And we have one final player on this list, and to me, this is very puzzling, kind of troubling to an extent that they would give up on a young player. But Jordan Harris, it's being reported that the Habs are shopping this player around as we approach the trade deadline. And this is surprising to me. I feel like if they wanted to free up a spot on D, it makes a little bit more sense to move out one of the veterans and give up on one of your younger, promising defensemen. And to be completely honest, I'm a Jordan Harris fan. I think he's played pretty well. I know a couple injuries this season, but yeah, it seems a little bit odd that they would be shopping around one Jordan Harris.
Yeah, it is odd. Jordan Harris, I think, is one of the smarter defensemen that the Canadiens have right now. Really good hockey IQ. He skates really well. He moves the puck. Size is an issue, but he's learned how to use his stick and position his body. And maybe that's what makes him somewhat valuable in a trade. He is a left-handed defenseman, and the Canadiens have a good number of those. So maybe to get something, you have to give up something good, and Jordan Harris is that something good. It's interesting, but obviously we saw this a couple places. Leaked to a fellow member of the Hockey News, and why is this being leaked is my question. Anyway, it'd be sad to see him go. Jordan Harris, third round pick, 71st overall, 2018. Maybe part of a package to bring in, that young player. I don't know. Is it going to happen before the trade deadline? Is this a draft time trade? Let's keep an eye on this.
Yeah, certainly one that we'll keep an eye on there. So we did our best to try and compile all the information that we have available to us, threw out a couple extras there that we think are worth talking about too. And as we approach the trade deadline here, is there any final comments that you wanted to send towards our listeners?
Well, listen, it's when it happens, it's going to happen fast. So make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast. Make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Make sure that you've bookmarked thn.com/Montreal. Make sure you're following us on social media. We're going to have this information to you. We're going to have the best analysis we can. We're going to bring in the best experts we can to talk about this. All you have to do, your part, is just make sure you're here with us.
Absolutely. And before we head out into our final break here, we have a question for all of our listeners. Our Canadiens Connection question of the week is, which Canadiens do you consider must trades ahead of the NHL trade deadline? We want to hear from you, and we'll give you some time to think about it. We'll take our final break here. Make sure that you stay with us. This is the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
The Canadiens Connection is proud to be a partner of Rocket Sports Media, digital media publishers of sports and entertainment websites. Their mission is to build a worldwide network of sports fans who are informed, engaged, entertained, and connected. Learn more about RSM, its team, and its portfolio of brands at rocketsportsmedia.com. I bet you enjoy sporting your best Habs jerseys, dressing up your kids and pets in the cutest Habs gear, and showing off your decked-out hockey cave or fanning. Well, don't just show your friends, show your Habs. The Rocket Sports Media team wants you to boast your finest pictures for our global network of Montreal Canadiens fans. Include the hashtag #ShowYourHabs when posting your fan photos on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Then log on to showyourhabs.com to see your entries, along with photos and posts from Habs fans all over the world. A proud member of the Rocket Sports Media Network. If you're a business owner looking for the perfect platform to reach a targeted audience of customers, Rocket Sports Media is the solution. Our global hockey community provides unmatched social media reach to an attentive demographic of sports and entertainment fans. We can provide visibility to your company, helping you to engage and leverage this prime group of potential clientele. In addition, we also offer sponsorship opportunities for fan events and featured areas of website content, giving you name and logo recognition. Visit rocketsportsmedia.com to contact us regarding this unique marketing opportunity. For the most trusted source of news, analysis, and features about the Montreal Canadiens, log in to thn.com/Montreal, your year-round source for anything Habs related. That's thn.com/Montreal.
Welcome back to episode 284 of the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio. You can follow at Habs Connection on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and you can visit the website canadiensconnection.fm. Also, feel free to visit our website. I did say that. Visit our website, canadiensconnection.fm. I can't highlight that enough.
Say it again.
It's a great website. canadiensconnection.fm. And also, I'll say this a few times, check out our Rocket Sports text line. Feel free to send us a text anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 585-3-ROCKET. That's 585-3-ROCKET. You know how to reach us there, and we look forward to hearing from all of you. And Rick, it's going to be a busy time as we approach this trade deadline. Things are going to be a little bit unpredictable, I think.
They are going to be unpredictable. It's also unpredictable what our fans say to us. And you mentioned the Rocket Sports text line, 585-3-ROCKET. I'll say it again, 585-3-ROCKET. And we got a text last week, after last week's show. And you may remember that we had Patrick Williams on the show. And Patrick was great. The entire second segment, and he talked about Laval and the progress there. And this text that we got right after the show came out, it said, the question, "No singing angels or cheering kids for Patrick?" ? And yes, I'm sorry, I forgot. I didn't play the singing angels or the cheering kids for Patrick. And I deeply apologize to Patrick and to our at least one listener that I didn't do that. So listen, that listener was able to text us, had something on their mind, and said, "Listen, I need to tell you about this." And they texted right away, and we're gonna act on it. So if you have anything to say, make sure you text us at 585 through Rocket, because yes, there are lots of things happening. We have lots of places to inform you in a lot of different ways. Well, why don't you tell them all the different ways we have to keep up with the Montreal Canadiens?
Yeah, here's what you need to know from Rocket Sports. We cover the Montreal Canadiens for the hockey news, and you can find all of that content at thn.com/Montreal. That's the Hockey News Montreal. You can find all of our Canadiens coverage in one place. We do feature articles, game day posts. We cover the Laval Rocket. We cover the Trois-Rivières Lions. Anything and everything you want to know about the Montreal Canadiens, head over to thn.com/Montreal. Also, if you're interested in some of our other multimedia content, we have a YouTube channel. You can find all of that at youtube.com/allhabs. Make sure that you hit subscribe. We have a couple different things that we do on there. Throughout the week, Amy Johnson hosts a pair of different shows, the first one being the Habs Hockey Report. The latest episode is entitled Montreal Canadiens Trade Deadline. Do you remember last year? And Amy does a great job hosting that show, as well as the Rocket Hockey Report. This week's episode was entitled Logan Mailloux leads the AHL in these categories. We got quite a bit of reaction for both of those, so make sure that you hit subscribe, watch both of those to stay up to date with the Montreal Canadiens and the Laval Rocket. You can also hit like if you like what you saw. Leave a comment too if you have anything to say, as Amy loves to read all those comments, and she likes to reply to them too, so make sure you head over to check out that. We also put this podcast up on YouTube, the Canadiens Connection podcast. Last week's episode, entitled Prospect Watch, update on the Habs defense and goaltending pipeline. That was the one that you mentioned, had Patrick Williams. So if you haven't watched it on YouTube, head over there, leave a like, hit subscribe, leave a comment too. We love reading all the comments. We have a couple good ones there already, and we are more than welcome to welcome you to our channel. Plus, a few times per month, we've been doing live stream watch-alongs for Montreal Canadiens games. I host that alongside my partner, Nathan. He's another Rocket Sports Media contributor who's been doing a great job alongside me. Just the other day, Thursday, February the 22nd, we watched the Montreal Canadiens take on the Pittsburgh Penguins. We have a great time doing this live. You get live commentary from me. We have all sorts of great topics prepared, plus a live chat if you have anything to say to us, any questions too. And I'll highlight here too, we had a trade go down during this game that we got to react to live, as Bemstrom was traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for Alex Nylander and a pick. And that leads me into our next live stream watch along party, and that's actually Trade Deadline Eve, the night before Trade Deadline. Thursday, March the 7th, mark the calendar, the Montreal Canadiens are taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. I know it's unlikely, but who knows? Maybe we have another live trade to react to on that one. What do you think about that, Rick?
That would be terrific. It was incredible seeing Pittsburgh trade a player while their team was playing, while you guys were doing the watch along. So listen, if you have trade suggestions for Kent Hughes, certainly you can send them to 585 through Rocket, but why not attend the next watch along on March 7th, and there you can bounce your ideas off all Habs fans joining from all over the globe. You all have one thing in common, a love for the Montreal Canadiens. Why don't you shut off the broadcast? I mean, turn down the volume, mute it, and listen to Michael and Nathan, who do a great show, very entertaining, very engaging, lots of information, and as well, like I say, there's the opportunity to connect with fans from all over the world. So be sure to the best way is to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click the bell, the notification bell, and that way you'll be notified for all the live streams that are upcoming.
Absolutely, because we do have a few coming up before the end of the season, and we have a lot of fun doing this, so we look forward to watching the games alongside you. Also, one last thing we'd like to let you know, make sure that you hit the subscribe button for this podcast, wherever you're listening to your podcast, on your favorite player. We're available on a lot of different streaming platforms, Also, the Canadiens Connection podcast is available at canadiensconnection.fm. So hit subscribe. You don't want to miss a single episode, as we're here every single Saturday. And if you like the show, we'd appreciate if you left us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll be here every single Saturday throughout the year. We don't go on vacation, and we're here to bring you great Montreal Canadiens content. We are your inside link to the Montreal Canadiens. And Rick, a little announcement coming from the Rocket Sports team. I believe that we are looking to recruit a few new team members.
The little announcement is join us. You want to have some fun. You want to support your team. You want to get involved with a great group. And you want the opportunity to appear in one of our publications. Well, then reach out to us. Send us an email, hello@rocketsportsmedia.com. Tell us why, what skills you have that you could bring to the group, why you are a great fan, or send us a text at 58553-ROCKET. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, I remember doing this a few years ago. I got to chat with you over the phone. We felt like it would be a good fit. Now I'm your weekly podcast host, and doing some live streams. Nathan was also one of those guys. He wasn't entirely sure where he would fit in amongst us, but he's been helping us with promotion, and now he's doing live streams alongside me, and we have a lot of fun doing it. So if you're interested, I do recommend reaching out to us. And now it's a good time to get to our Canadiens Connection question of the week. And to all of our listeners, we ask, which Canadiens do you consider must-trades ahead of the NHL Trade Deadline? We want to hear from you. Text us at 5853-ROCKET, and you can reach out to us on social media at All Habs on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And Rick, I think you said the email not too long ago, but let's hear it once again.
The email address is hello@rocketsportsmedia.com. Tell us, which of these players, is it Armia, Anderson, Savard, Allen, Pearson, you want Kent Hughes to go get Zegras? Tell us what you think. Reach out to us at hello@rocketsportsmedia.com.
We get tons of tweets, emails, comments on all of our content throughout the week, so we enjoy reading all of those, and a little bit of encouragement to continue doing that. We might give you a shout out on the show as well, as this is the Have Your Say segment. And CH Weekly, the Montreal Canadiens have 3 games between now and the next time we meet up, Rick. So on February the 24th, the Montreal Canadiens take on the New Jersey Devils. That's an early start. A couple days later, the Arizona Coyotes come to town on the 27th. And then Montreal goes down to visit the Florida Panthers on the 29th. And I hear those Florida Panthers are big, strong, and also quite talented. So that's going to be a fun game to watch out for. Yeah,
this is going to be an interesting week to see where the Canadiens end up by the time we join you for the next podcast.
Absolutely. So that's going to be a wrap for us today. Thank you all for listening. Make sure that you are subscribed to the Canadiens Connection podcast in the player or on any of your favorite podcasting apps. You can share it on social media too. That way that we reach out to all sorts of other Montreal Canadiens fans. Enjoy the week. We'll be back here next Saturday, March the 2nd, for another great episode. Thank you all for listening to the Canadiens Connection podcast here on Rocket Sports Radio.
Click subscribe so you never miss an episode of Canadiens Connection. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Rocket Sports.